I'm Logan Crawford, and right now on Spotlight, we're speaking with James Gibson, and he has written a powerful book. It is called Nuclear Weapons of the United States, The Illustrated History. The book offers an in-depth exploration of America's nuclear arsenal, providing a detailed account of each of the weapons' history and specifications. This is a comprehensive guide that raises questions about the role of nuclear weapons in shaping national and global security. We're delighted to have this very talented author join us here today on Spotlight. We thank our team at Sweetspire Literature Management for helping us put him in the spotlight today. We ask viewers like you to support writers like him by subscribing to our channel and by purchasing his wonderful book. The links are below this interview. James, great to see you here today on Spotlight.
Thank you.
Tell us, what's the inspiration behind Nuclear Weapons of the United States, The Illustrated History?
The inspiration was finding out, as you say, how much people don't know. And surprisingly, finding out that a lot of people who are advisors or have the ear of the politicians and elites don't know.
Exactly. It's frightening that people know so little. The politicians in Washington don't even know the bills that they're voting on often. They haven't read them. And in this case, they are making nuclear policy, yet they don't know about the weapons. They don't know anything about the arsenal, or very little.
I think the scariest thing I ever saw was a little over a year ago, a C-SPAN program on nuclear weapons, which I was going to sit in and listen to. Mm-hmm. And suddenly found out that the experts were young women of color who could only do much more than giggle. And I'm sitting there going, this is not a subject for gigglers.
Exactly. Exactly. It's a serious topic, that's for sure. We're giggling at the gigglers at this point, which is why we're giggling. But what's your background that you know so much about nuclear weapons?
Surprisingly enough, my background is just simply that my father was involved in one of the earliest intercontinental missile programs in the 1950s, before I was born. And in the late 1960s, after he put us on the moon, I basically came up to him and said, "Dad, what did you do before you went on the Apollo program?" And he gave me some limited information because he wasn't sure how much of it was still classified or not. And I started reading up on the subject after that. And basically, by the early 80s, I was well versed on a portion of the nuclear arsenal. I'll put it that way, because when I found out that, as I said, certain people didn't know what they were talking about, or put it bluntly, that there was 5 strategic nuclear weapons of the past that were being disavowed regularly in the media, I started more in-depth research work, and that's when I learned everything I didn't already know.
Exactly. Everything you ever wanted to know about nuclear weapons, but were afraid to ask.
Yeah.
To paraphrase a famous book. That's wonderful. It's interesting that your dad's experience sparked your interest in nuclear weapons. What was it like writing this book? What kind of research did you do? How did you come about getting the pictures?
Well, a lot of the pictures are actually public domain. And the National Archives was a very, very good source. And another good source at that time was the National Atomic Museum at Albuquerque, New Mexico. It was on Kirkland Air Force Base, and I was surprised that I'd actually be allowed to actually get through the gate to go and view the museum. Today, you can't do that, of course, because thanks to 9/11, almost all the military bases are closed to non-military personnel. But in those days, in the 80s and 90s, I could fly out from California and spend the day at the museum, and come back home on the late shuttle.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot has changed since 9/11. You can't even go into an office building anymore without showing an ID, and I think giving a pin stick of blood as well.
At
Tell me
least
a
show,
little.
at least show your fingerprints.
Exactly, exactly. Tell me a little bit about nuclear weapons. Do you think they are going to be the demise of civilization, the savior of civilization? What's your viewpoint?
My viewpoint at the moment is that they're a savior because we really have avoided getting ourselves into another hot, or I should say super hot conventional war
Mm,
because of the threat that it would go over the edge.
yeah.
Uh, Mind you, though, at the same time, I look at the number of countries now have nuclear weapons. And obviously, the efforts of the 1970s and the early 80s to try to forestall the development of more nuclear weapons, more countries with them, has not exactly worked.
Yeah. I know when you consider Iran has nuclear weapons or might have nuclear weapons, North Korea appears to have nuclear weapons. I mean, you've got some hot-headed world leaders out there with nuclear weapons. So, yeah, you hope that calmer heads prevail, but one never knows, does one?
Well, I'm the one that keeps telling people to keep an eye on Wake Island in the Pacific. And when it disappears from the face of the earth, you'll know that the head of North Korea has finally proven he can deliver a nuclear warhead.
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
What do you hope readers take away from your book?
well, personally, I hope they get a better knowledge of what we've had and what we operationally have today,
Hmm.
both the past weaponry and the present weaponry. Future systems, that's a very flexible influx situation. You never know whether they're going to actually fully deploy the device they're working on or not.
Right.
But you look at what we have right now, and you look at what we've had in the past. You know, what we've had in the past gives you a better idea of what probably the future could come out to be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Um, right now, do you feel that the football that they talk about, the nuclear football, the fact that the president of the United States has the codes to start a war, do you feel they're in good hands?
Oh, they're in probably pretty good hands. The idea that the football gives them the ability to launch the whole arsenal, it's got more information on what the president's going to be going to, where he's going to be moved to for his own safety, what the passcode for him is going to be in case of an emergency. It doesn't really have a transmitter.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. Do you, what was it like researching this book? Did it take you a long time to write it? Was it based on a lot of information you already had and you just put it down to paper, or was there a lot of research involved?
There was quite a bit of research involved, actually. And I basically, as I say, my father was the original inspiration
Hmm.
for his original work. And one time he came up to me as I was going through the material I picked up from the last trip to the museum. And he just kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, Jim, when the guys in the three-piece suits and the dark glasses show up at the front door, I don't know you.
Exactly. When the men in
So,
black show up at your door, watch out. Well, hopefully they don't show up at your door anytime soon. I think you've done a great public service by letting the public get a front row seat to what our nuclear arsenal is all about. The name of the book that James Gibson has written is called Nuclear Weapons of the United States, The Illustrated History. It is an in-depth exploration of America's nuclear arsenal. It's an amazing book, pictures and all. Like I said, you could call it everything you ever wanted to know about our nuclear weapons, but didn't know who to ask. Now you do. James Gibson. Jim, thank you so much for joining us here today on Spotlight.
Thank you.
My pleasure. And to the folks at home, I'm Logan Crawford, thanking you for your time this time. Until next time on Spotlight.